Welcome to NTD News. I'm Kevin Hogan. Here are today's top stories. A mass shooting in a quiet Southern California community broke out Wednesday afternoon. At least 4 people were killed, with another person in critical condition. The suspect hasn't been identified. Border Patrol releases video footage of someone dropping 2 small children off a tall border fence into the United States. But what happened to these kids? Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell isn't happy with President Biden's infrastructure proposal and likely won't support it. He sees it as a Trojan horse that will add to the national debt. A lawmaker in Texas attempts to ban critical race theory in public schools. That's while a grassroots rebellion grows against the controversial theory. And YouTube tests a new option for video creators. It allows them to hide the number of dislikes on a video, but many comments responding to the news say they dislike the plan. A deadly mass shooting sadly claimed the lives of at least 4 people, including a child. It happened in the city of Orange, California yesterday afternoon. Authorities are still investigating the shooter's motive. NTD's Jamie Joseph has more.
Residents were startled when they heard gunshots coming from this commercial building right here behind me in Orange, California. Police responded to a call at approximately 5:25 p.m. on Wednesday of a mass shooting, killing 4 people, including 1 child. 1 female was transported to a local hospital and is in critical condition. Police have not identified the shooter or the victims. Lieutenant Jennifer Amat told us the shooter was still firing off rounds when officers arrived on the scene.
The suspect was also transported to the hospital where he is also in critical condition. Officers have located 1 firearm on the scene, and the investigation is currently in progress. It will take several hours, days, and weeks.
There was still heavy police presence at approximately 11:30 p.m. Wednesday night as police continue to investigate the scene and try to figure out any motives the shooter may have had.
Orange is a very safe city, so we don't have incidents like this that happen very often. We have not had anything like this happen since the 1997 Caltrans shooting. So this is very unusual. Our hearts, thoughts, and prayers go out to those victims, their families. Our community really is impacted, as well as our department. 2 workers in the office building actually told me they usually get off at 5 p.m., but today they got off an hour early. They also told me one of the victims' cars is still in the parking lot. Police will be giving updates as the investigation is ongoing in the coming days. This is the 3rd mass shooting in the U.S. this year. Jamie Joseph, NTD News, Los Angeles.
A U.S. Border Patrol camera caught someone dropping 2 young children over a border fence in New Mexico and then leaving the kids there. Here's the video.
Border Patrol released this night vision footage Wednesday. They say it shows a human smuggler drop 2 young children off a 14-foot-high border fence into New Mexico. Border Patrol says the agent operating the camera saw it all go down. She alerted others to the location where they found a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. The agency says they're sisters from Ecuador. A local hospital checked them out and then released them into Border Patrol's custody. And Mexican authorities have found a 4-year-old Honduran boy presumably walking alone to the U.S. border. He was found near Mexican City across from McAllen, Texas. A group of 3 mothers and 6 children were found in the same area, but no one claimed responsibility for him. He's now in Mexican custody. So what's causing the surge in unaccompanied children crossing the border? One progressive analyst says it's the result of former President Trump's policies.
The Trump administration wouldn't allow children to come to the United States to seek asylum. So there's been a huge backlog in terms of the numbers of those kids.
One conservative analyst says Trump's policies made the asylum system stronger. He says under Trump, they focused on people in need and took out fraudulent claims.
Our Biden administration was absolutely warned in very clear and certain terms what undoing all of the things the Trump administration had put in place would do, along with sending this kind of message south of the border that we're open for business.
But they both agree that something needs to be done about the overcrowded conditions.
The conditions are not acceptable now, and they need to be improved. The Biden administration should be pushed to do it as fast as possible.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says Texans pay over $850 million each year on illegal immigration. He says Texans will always welcome those who follow the law, but they can't continue to force taxpayers to foot the bill for illegal immigration.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell signals he's unlikely to support President Biden's infrastructure package. He points out the $2 trillion proposal's tax hikes and impact on national debt. McConnell says he disagrees with raising corporate taxes to 28% to fund the plan, adding that he sees it as a Trojan horse and that less than 6% of the money will go to roads and bridges. He says most of it is set out for far-left projects. Democrats say they could try to push the bill through without Republican support, but some moderate Democrats won't support that method. Former President Trump stated the bill would be the largest tax hike in American history. And he says it would send American businesses back to China and leave America in the same economic state as before he took office. There's a bill in Texas that takes aim at critical race theory. It doesn't specifically call out the partly Marxist theory, but it bans schools from teaching its key concepts. Here are the details.
Texas Republican State Representative James White introduced a bill that prohibits key concepts from critical race theory from being taught. The rule would make it illegal to teach students at least three things. One is the idea that a person should be treated favorably or discriminated against because of his race or sex. The second is the idea that a person is responsible for what people of their same race did in the past. And third is the idea that a person of a certain race or sex is by definition racist or sexist. The measure would also prevent Texas officials from using materials such as the equitable math training courses. Those are promoted by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they tell math teachers that it's racist to make students show their work or focus on finding the right answer. The push in Texas comes as a grassroots rebellion picks up steam to ban the theory from the military and public schools. Businessman and TV personality Kevin O'Leary said he was devastated when he found out his former football coach was fired. He was fired because he questioned a 7th grade history curriculum that called white people and America inherently racist. That was at a high school in Massachusetts. A few weeks after the coach was fired, Judicial Watch filed a lawsuit in federal court. It alleges the decision to fire him violated his First Amendment right to make requests of public officials and that it was retaliation for his criticizing the curriculum that's based on quasi-Marxist theory. Republicans in at least 7 states have moved to ban teaching the concepts of critical race theory. Their efforts come after Joe Biden reversed former President Trump's order that banned federal agencies from training their employees in the theory.
Republican leaders make plans on how to get majorities back in Congress in the next election cycle. Representative Jim Banks says they need to build on the voter base that former President Trump created. That's while Democrats focus on passing new election laws. Republicans and Democrats are already planning strategies for the next election cycle. Representative Jim Banks is the chairman of the largest conservative caucus in the House of Representatives. He sends a memo to Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy outlining an election strategy for the GOP. He says Republicans need to build on Trump's policies and embrace the voting base he created. Banks says there is a shift in Republican voters. President Trump gave the Republican Party a political gift. We are now the party supported by most working-class voters. He says blue-collar voters are moving to the Republican Party, and the Democrats are now the party of Wall Street. He says Romney got 3 times more from Wall Street than Obama, but President Joe Biden got 4 times more than Trump. Banks says Republicans can take the House if they enthusiastically embrace their voters. He says they need to amplify their message supporting Trump's popular policies on law and order, immigration, trade, and standing up to the Chinese Communist Party. Banks says they need to tell voters that Democrats now represent wokeness and corporate interests. Meanwhile, Democrats want to pass sweeping federal election reforms. Just a few of the changes would expand mail-in voting, eliminate voter ID laws, and mandate ballot harvesting. YouTube may allow creators to hide the number of dislikes on their videos. They announced that they're testing the new option. This comes after YouTube removed thousands of dislikes from videos out of the White House.
YouTube says it's testing the feature because of feedback from creators. A company announcement says the public dislikes can impact the well-being of creators. It says that some dislikes are from, quote, targeted dislike campaigns. A majority of responses to the Twitter announcement and on YouTube's support page disapprove of the idea. Some comments suggest it's a political move. Recent videos coming out of the White House amass a large number of dislikes on the platform. YouTube soon started reducing the number. Users showed thousands of dislikes disappearing from White House videos and posted before and after screenshots of the vanishing dislikes. YouTube told the Epoch Times it removes engagements it considers spam, but did not explain how they're told apart. YouTube owner Google has long faced accusations of political bias. The company maintains that their products are politically neutral. Whistleblowers and leaked internal documents show otherwise. Researcher Robert Epstein assembled a team of 700 voters to monitor messages from Google ahead of the 2020 election. They examined search results, suggestions, reminders, and news feeds leading up to the election. Epstein says previous voting behavior changed the users' results. He believes Google influenced and shifted millions of votes in the last election.
You may have heard of the Christian baker Jack Phillips. He refused to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple because he said it went against his religious values. The case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, which narrowly took his side. Now he's being sued again on another issue. NTD's Christina Kim speaks to Jack Phillips and his lawyer.
Jack Phillips is the artist behind the beautifully handcrafted cakes from Masterpiece Cake Shop in Lakewood, Colorado. According to him, it's not just a cake, it's a masterpiece. But Phillips is being targeted for his Christian beliefs. He's being sued for refusing to bake a cake that celebrates a transgender transition. This is a part of a string of legal battles he's been facing for nearly a decade. Phillips tells us more about the current lawsuit against him, filed by attorney Autumn Scardina, a transgender woman. Phillips recalls how she placed an order with his cake shop in June of 2017, the same day the Supreme Court announced they'd take his earlier case.
We got a call from an attorney here in Colorado requesting a custom cake, and the cake was going to be pink on the inside and blue on the outside, and those colors would celebrate a gender transition, changing from a man to a woman. And when we informed this attorney that that's not a cake that we create, but they were welcome to come in anytime and purchase other cakes, anything from our showcases or even other custom work, that wasn't good enough.
The attorney then filed a complaint with the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. They went through rounds of mediation and ended up back in court. Scardina's lawyer says the cake order wasn't a setup, but, quote, more of calling someone's bluff. The lawyer called Phillips a bigot and a hypocrite before asking him to bake a red and black cake with Satan smoking a marijuana joint. And the lawyer told him in a face-to-face meeting that if he won the case or it was dismissed on any technicality, they would order another controversial cake and sue him again the very next day. But Phillips says he can't bake every kind of cake for everyone. For example, he also doesn't bake cakes that depict alcohol, Halloween, have anti-American or disparaging messages toward anyone, including gay people. He says his business has taken a significant hit, but explains why he's standing his ground.
Well, God's given us, this business. He's given me certain skills and artistic abilities and different things, and I can't use them to create products that would defame him or not honor him.
His lawyer, Jake Warner, says tolerance is a two-way street, and people shouldn't use the justice system to punish people they disagree with.
Well, people like Jack, they serve everyone. They just cannot express every message. And the Supreme Court has recognized this line before. That's the exact line that courts need to recognize, is that the government has no power to force people to express messages that go against their core beliefs, especially when these business owners serve everyone through their business.
This is a small shop. I'm just a regular guy running a small business, and it happened here. It could happen anywhere. And that everybody needs to know, every American needs to be free to live and work according to their conscience without fear of punishment, without fear of these things.
Phillips says his faith, his family, and community are helping him get through these trying times. The trial ended last week, and Phillips and his lawyer are waiting for a decision soon. Christina Kim, NTD News.
And just ahead, the Supreme Court hears the case for expanding benefits for student athletes. The High Court is expected to rule on the case before the end of June. Learn more in just a minute. Student athletes are seeking expanded scholarship benefits and are taking their case to the top. The Supreme Court heard arguments Wednesday, though a decision may not come until June. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Right now, colleges can only offer scholarships for students to attend school, but can't pay for expenses. That's based on rules from the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA. The organization argues the rule helps preserve the amateur nature of college sports.
The current definition of amateurism is that college athletes cannot be paid based on their athletic ability unrelated to education. So they can receive athletic scholarships, but they can't receive any money on top of that.
The case is not about whether students can be paid salaries. Instead, the outcome will help determine whether schools can offer athletes tens of thousands of dollars in education benefits for things like computers, graduate scholarships, tutoring, study abroad, and internships. A ruling for student athletes would mean the NCAA could not bar schools from sweetening their offers to Division I basketball and football players, though individual athletic conferences could still set limits.
So we'll know more in a couple of months whether this is the more of the same for the NCAA, that they'll be able to maintain the status quo more or less, or whether this is the beginning of the end of amateurism restrictions as we know it.
The NCAA is also in the process of trying to amend other rules that could allow athletes to earn money for things like sponsorship deals, online endorsements, and personal appearances. A decision from the justices is expected before the end of June, when the High Court traditionally breaks for summer. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A traffic stop led to a roadside baby delivery in the Orlando, Florida area Tuesday. It all started with 2 highway patrol troopers pulling over a speeding SUV. But to their surprise, the driver told them his wife was having a baby. Her contractions were about 5 minutes apart. They got her out of the SUV and onto a blanket on a grassy area on the side of the road. Things escalated quickly, and soon the baby girl was ready to enter the world before an ambulance could get there. One trooper saw the baby coming and checked on her condition. The father caught the baby and handed her to the trooper, who patted her back to help clear her lungs. Police took mom and newborn to a hospital, with dad and big sister following behind. Mom and baby are both healthy, and dad did not get ticketed. A lone dolphin stranded itself on Long Island on Tuesday. It didn't take long for police, firemen, and marine specialists to come to its rescue.
A common dolphin became stuck on Tuesday on a Long Island beach during low tide. A passerby called the police. 4 officers responded and found the mammal bogged down in the mud. Together with a helpful civilian, they lifted the dolphin onto a kayak. The boat was dragged through knee-deep mud to the sea. The dolphin returned to the water and began to swim. 2 police officers were injured during the rescue effort and had to be taken to the hospital. Firemen arrived on a small boat, attempting to let the animal into deeper water. Someone from the New York Marine Rescue Center came to evaluate the dolphin and found it needed veterinary care. It was too dark by then to safely capture the animal. They continued the rescue effort the next morning.
Unfortunately, despite everyone's best efforts, the dolphin died the next morning. And up next, we look at the movement to recall California's governor. It has now verified over 1 million signatures. Verifying 1.5 million signatures could trigger a special election. Cherry trees are in bloom at the University of Washington. The school purchased the trees from Japan in 1939, and they have amazed visitors ever since. All that and more on NTD News.
Here's what a reader writes to best-selling author James Cook about his new book, The Great Gold Comeback, Bankruptcy of the Welfare State. There is no way I could ever properly express my thanks to you for the Gold Comeback book and all that you have written within it. What a real treasure. Get this hard-hitting volume absolutely free. It covers economics, inflation, socialism, welfarism, capitalism, crashes, panics, interventionism, and crisis. Regularly $29. Yours free. Call 1-800-328-1860.
The coronavirus outbreak is the latest wake-up call.
U.S. Senator Ben Sasse put it plainly, the Chinese Communist Party has lied, is lying, and will continue to lie about coronavirus to protect the regime.
In 5 to 10 years, we'll have virtually no manufacturing capacity left for generic drugs. And again, this is 90% of our medicines.
And the world should know, if Hong Kong falls, the whole world falls, okay? Because the Chinese Communist Party is the existential risk of humanity, period.
Since the CCP took power, 80 million people have died from its policies and political campaigns.
They're using our institutions and our norms and our values against us in ways that we hadn't necessarily envisioned towards their own authoritarian agenda.
From the party's great firewall in cyberspace or to that great wall of sand in the South China Sea?
More repression, more unfair competition, more predatory economic practices, indeed a more aggressive military posture as well.
If we do not meet this threat now, it's going to define our century.
California's recall movement against Governor Gavin Newsom has verified over 1 million signatures so far. They need to certify 1.5 million before it qualifies for a special election this year.
The Recall Newsom 2020 campaign has verified 1.19 million signatures as of date by the Secretary of State. The movement started last year and gained over 2.1 million signatures by deadline, about 500,000 more than required. That extra buffer will make up for any invalid signatures. If the state validates 1.5 million signatures, it will trigger a special election.
Polls are going to fluctuate between now and the election day. We understand that. We get that. Our job is to continue to make the case on why Gavin Newsom needs to be recalled. That's the only thing that matters.
Governor Newsom launched his own counter-campaign on March 15th. He labeled the recall as a Republican-backed movement. Other Democrat leaders joined Newsom in denouncing the campaign. But the recall made it clear that it's not a partisan movement, but a people movement. They estimate about 31 to 35% who signed the petition are Democrats and people who don't state their political affiliation.
So thank you, Elizabeth Warren. Thank you, Cory Booker. And thank you, everybody else. California can run their own politics and let the people of California run their own politics without outside federal interference.
The county registrars have until April 29th to verify the signatures. Then there's a 30-day period for the legislature to review it and another 30 days to budget it. If they have enough signatures, the Secretary of State will set an election date within 80 to 120 days.
During this period, instead of having a debate of what's wrong with the recall, why don't we have a debate in California about what in California needs to be fixed? What Californians want is this. We want accountability and transparency from our government, and we are not getting accountability and transparency from the governor of California.
We races are working together, Latinos, Asians, people from everywhere, because we want to take back California. We're tired of California being a state that is so beautiful, it has everything, but we always have to pay high taxes. Our gas is so expensive.
A lead proponent for the recall campaign feels confident that Newsom will lose the election because many Californians are frustrated.
There's going to be over 100 quality people put their name in to become the next governor of California, and there's nothing that they can do to prevent this election from going forward. It's statistically almost impossible for them to reject or rescind enough signatures to prevent it from going to ballot. So they're now strategizing, what do we do? How do we survive this in the best light possible?
Their goal now is to let the public know why the recall exists and convince at least 51% of the state's population to vote Newsom out. Eileen Eng, NTD News.
Spring is the season for flowers, and in Washington State, cherry blossoms have a special yearly display on one university campus. Here's a look at spring in Seattle.
From mid-March to early April, the Yoshino cherry trees burst into bloom in the University of Washington's Liberal Arts Quad. Just like the flowers, love comes out in spring, too.
You know, we've come up here a couple times before out of season, and so we've always looked forward to come out here, so we're actually really excited to see it this time of year.
Vance and his girlfriend Katie told NTD that they came out together to see the blossoms for the first time.
I've never been here when the cherry blossoms are blooming. That's the reason why we came over here today, was to check them out. I just think they're gorgeous, and we had to come see them.
The blossoms usually attract thousands of visitors to the UW campus each spring. However, the crowd is much smaller this year as UW is encouraging virtual flower tours.
So it's the first time looking at it. We're happy to see it, and it's real pretty this time of year.
Seattle has many cherry tree displays, but the UW campus is special.
And so they have a couple cherry blossoms, but nothing to this magnitude. And so I've seen on social media people coming to visit them, and so they were gorgeous.
Originally, all 30 of the trees were purchased from Japan in 1939. They have lived in and wowed visitors in the UW Quad since 1962.
As cherry blossoms reach their peak, restaurants in Washington, D.C. celebrate with delicious seasonal treats.
Most of the National Cherry Blossom Festival is going virtual this year, but some annual traditions are marching on. For years, local restaurants have celebrated the cherry blossoms with yummy seasonal fare.
We've had the design for the last 6 years, and it's worked, and we don't want to mess with it. And it's timeless, so it seems to work every year, and the spring is in there, and they come out.
Filled with tart cherry jam and topped with a cream cheese glaze, this bestseller gives people the experience of cherry blossoms without having to step outside. But one regular told NTD he's going to enjoy the festive treat under flowering trees with friends.
I'm definitely going to take them to the donut shop so they can get, eat a donut that has a cherry blossom on it, and also go and see the cherry blossoms over by the Jefferson and MLK memorials.
DC's iconic cherry blossoms reached their peak last Sunday, but might remain until early next week if nice weather persists. People from all over the world can join in with nationalmall.org's virtual Bloom Cam. Lin, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
And still to come, a Hong Kong court finds 7 prominent democracy advocates guilty of illegal assembly, despite a constitutional right to assemble. Among them is the convicted media And we have an update on Hong Kong. One of the city's courts is bringing charges against a barista and a media tycoon. Here are the details.
A Hong Kong court has found 7 prominent Democrats guilty of unauthorized assembly. The case is seen as the latest crackdown by China on its freest city after the imposition of a sweeping national security law last year. The 82-year-old barrister Martin Lee and media tycoon Jimmy Lai were among the defendants. Lee helped launch Hong Kong's largest opposition Democratic Party in the 1990s and is often referred to as the city's father of democracy. Another defendant, pro-democracy activist Lee Chuk-yun, spoke to reporters outside the court.
In this day of reckoning, the political suppression is equally to all those who have taken part in the protest movement, including no matter whether you are the peaceful non-violence group or the braver, you are all caught under this political suppression wave.
The court case relates to a peaceful demonstration held on August the 18th in 2019, which grew into an unauthorized march as numbers swelled into the hundreds of thousands. During the trial, defense lawyers argued that freedom of assembly is a constitutional right in Hong Kong. But the district court judge said that that right was not absolute and argued that restrictions are imposed to preserve public safety and order. Sentencing will come later, with some legal experts expecting jail terms of 12 to 18 months. The maximum possible sentence is 5 years.
The BBC's China correspondent is now in Taiwan. John Sudworth left China after he faced threats and pressure from the Chinese regime.
The BBC said on Wednesday its Beijing correspondent had relocated to Taiwan amid pressure from the Chinese regime. John Sudworth was known for his reporting on the treatment of the Uyghur people. He said he had been under surveillance, faced threats of legal action, obstruction and intimidation. China's foreign ministry on Wednesday said it had never threatened him, but it strongly condemned the BBC's reporting on Xinjiang, COVID-19 and Hong Kong. Sudworth said on his way to the airport, plainclothes police officers followed him and his family all the way into the check-in area. The BBC says Sudworth, who was based in China for 9 years, will remain its China correspondent.
And soon we'll pass on a warning for companies buying medical supplies. Congressman Stephen Lynch is urging them not to buy personal protective equipment from China.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need? Now you can sell your policy, even a term policy, for an immediate cash payment. Call Coventry Direct to learn more.
We thought we had planned carefully for our retirement.
But we quickly realized we needed a way to supplement our income.
Our friends sold their policy to help pay their medical bills. And that got me thinking. Maybe selling our policy could help with our retirement.
I was skeptical, so I did some research and called Coventry Direct. They explained life insurance is a valuable asset that can be sold.
We learned we could sell all of our policy or keep part of it with no future payments. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we can relax and enjoy our retirement as we had planned.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may qualify to sell your policy. Don't cancel or let your policy lapse without finding out what it's worth. Visit CoventryDirect.com to find out if your policy qualifies, or call 1-800-509-8500. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
With the $1.9 trillion virus relief bill, American companies and local governments have more power to buy medical supplies. But Congressman Stephen Lynch is sending a strong message to them. Here's our latest financial and business news on jobs and the economy.
This is a gap in our national security that we can address ourselves, rather than offshoring that capability to countries that are hacking our federal government, hacking our domestic companies, and who are not acting in a friendly and supportive way.
Democrat Congressman Stephen Lynch from Massachusetts is urging companies and local governments receiving funds from the American Rescue Plan to buy American medical supplies. But some companies still offshore their supplies.
So even though some companies may be assembling the product, the mask, they may be putting the elastics on here in the United States, and they call them assembled in the United States but sourced overseas, that doesn't eliminate the vulnerability that we have.
In April last year, Massachusetts negotiated a deal with the Chinese regime and bought over 1 million respiratory masks from China. But many of them are not the industry standard N95 masks. Rather, they are a Chinese version called KN95. Some hospitals in Boston have declined to use them, and they are not certified by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health.
We have companies all over the United States that are trying to provide the product for the protection of United States citizens. That can't happen if we continue to buy product from China. Okay, so we have to get our act together. We have some.
Lynch told the Boston Herald that if we have to rely on our adversity to protect us, we're in trouble, and that we shouldn't put our future and our safety in the hands of a government that's been hostile to the interests of the United States. Allison Lee, NTD News.
The U.S. Army has awarded Microsoft a major contract to make augmented reality devices. The Army said the devices are designed to help soldiers rehearse, train, and fight. The contract follows a 2018 contract to create prototypes of the devices. The new agreement will take them into the field. Microsoft says the Army's first objective is providing systems for its entire close combat force. That means more than 120,000 devices are needed. The deal has a 5-year base and another 5-year option to extend. The project could be worth up to $21.9 billion over the full 10 years. We hear from the CEO of Boeing, who spoke at this year's Aviation Summit. He says the combination of public and private support has been remarkable for the airline industry. And he says the biggest challenge facing the industry right now is the differing virus protocols from country to country. The CEO of Boeing, Dave Calhoun, commended the public and private interests that helped the airline industry during the pandemic. He pointed out that the original CCP virus relief bill was to give support to airlines to keep them ready for a recovery.
In fact, that's what it was always about, to keep them ready so that when a recovery comes about, we can start back up and we can travel quickly at the same levels that we used to. So the money that was provided, the support that was provided, in my view, is fit that purpose, and it's fitted perfectly.
President Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan gave airlines another round of support to the tune of $14 billion. That's to help extend paychecks until late September. This means the total payroll support to the airline industry is just over $50 billion. For airlines, the Treasury Department is only asking for just under a third of the money back. It's basically working like a grant to keep employees on the payroll and to avoid layoffs. Calhoun said at the beginning of the pandemic, they laid out a 3 to 5 year recovery timeline. He says he never imagined that within a year, vaccines would be distributed broadly around the country and the world.
And I think I'm optimistic, as most people are in the industry, that when the vaccines hit their 50 to 70% distribution, we will be back to normal. The fact that may happen over the course of this year and even over the course of the summer, I think is fantastic.
Right now, airline travel is about half what it used to be. But while vaccines are distributed, there are indications that people want to get back in the skies, and that could mean the spark of a recovery by this summer. Calhoun mentioned that global protocols to get in and out of different countries are very inconsistent, and this is making international travel that much harder for Boeing.
Tourism, of course, is stalled completely. Traffic is stalled because passengers don't know what to expect on the other end. And until that's predictable and until it's reliable, we're going to be in a tough spot. And it's going to require an incredible amount of global coordination.
Calhoun says the toughest of all the jobs is establishing coordination across the globe. And an aviation expert at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, says airlines have taken a lot of steps to create a safe environment. So according to her, right now, it's safe to fly. Delta Airlines is ending one of its pandemic-era practices. The airline says every seat on its flights will go on sale starting May 1st. During the height of the pandemic, many U.S. airlines blocked middle seats on flights as a safety precaution. But most of them have already done away with their limited capacity policies. The announcement means Delta will let the policy expire on April 30th as scheduled. Australians who just wanted a break from last year's restrictions could find no relief when they went traveling domestically. From face masks to floods, natural disasters struck again.
Imagine showing up for a late check-in at a holiday resort only to find out that the place has been ruined by a natural disaster. Carol Curry says she had to tell this to two guests who arrived at the Marina Holiday Park on a recent night about 200 miles north of Sydney. She manages the park. The place is emblematic of widespread heartache across Australia's tourism industry. It was counting on this season to rebound after a year of coronavirus shutdowns, and Australians, tired of it all, were counting on them for some relief. Then, the floods came. The massive floods, the likes of which hadn't been seen in half a century.
We were fully booked. So, yeah, that's been a bit of a task on its own, trying to contact the people that were coming to the park and advising them as the office went under, and so did all our reservation books and computers and things like that. Every cabin would have been chock-a-block full of kids and families, and have the big Easter hunt on Easter Sunday morning, and they would have been out here at the barbecue area and in the pool, and would have been, it's always a good time.
Tourism is a major part of Australia's economy. It generated about $47 billion in 2019, according to the industry group Tourism Australia. About 5% of Australians are employed by it. Anissa Manton co-owns the Stony Aqua Park, not far from Curry's.
So this is on our front leg, and you can see...
She says she's looking at 6 months of repairs, and her insurance provider is offering no help.
Which was extremely disappointing. It's a sub-clause, apparently, in your insurance, which is due to tourism. So I'm not the only one to find this out, which I find hard to believe, but anyway, that's the case. So we do spend in excess of $150,000 a year on insurance, but no insurance.
Manton says she's fortunate because they managed to get far enough into the tourism season unscathed to set some money aside. With a new coronavirus outbreak in at least one state, the pain will continue.
And up next, we see 12 bottles of Bordeaux wine return from a trip to outer space. Early tastings reveal key differences from their earthly counterparts. And Lego enthusiasts build elaborate works in Vietnam. Their passion for the plastic pieces brings them together. Find out more on NTD News. Italian police say they've arrested an Italian Navy captain and a Russian military official. That's for exchanging secret documents in exchange for money.
An Italian Navy captain and a Russian diplomat have been arrested in Rome on suspicion of espionage, according to Italian police, after they were allegedly caught swapping documents for money at a secret meeting on Tuesday night. NATO documents were among the files that the Navy captain passed to the Russian official, local media said. A police source identified the captain as Walter Biot and said he accepted €5,000 in exchange for the information. A ministry source says Biot was working at the Defence Ministry Department developing national security policy and managing part of the relations with Italy's allies. The Russian is a military official accredited at the embassy. Police say the arrest followed a long investigation carried out by the Italian intelligence with the support of the military.
The French president announced a new national lockdown on Wednesday. He says new variants are the reason for an increase in the number of hospitalized patients who are infected with the virus. NTD's David Vives has the story.
The restrictive lockdown measures applied in some regions in France will be widened to the whole country. French President Emmanuel Macron announced today schools won't reopen until May 5th. All shops will be closed except essential ones.
In some ways, we are facing this acceleration due to the new UK variant. We will lose control if we do not move now. In the upcoming months, we need to set a new framework.
The decision came after intensive care units in the hardest hit regions were at the point of breakdown. On Sunday, March 28th, 40 doctors and hospital directors called for a new lockdown. They said hospital beds were going to be outnumbered by infected patients, and some would not get treated. But the new restrictive measures are increasingly under fire, as the country has gone under repeated lockdowns over the past year. According to Dr. Bernard Combe, the French government hasn't taken the time to prepare to face the virus.
We are in the third wave of infections. There will be other waves in the future. After the summer, it's very likely there will be new variants, so it is extremely urgent that we prepare our hospitals.
Pandemic has killed around 96,000 people in France as of Wednesday morning. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
A special wine tasting in France features a taste out of this world. 12 bottles of Bordeaux that spent a year in space have returned to Earth, tasting, smelling, and looking different than bottles that stayed on the ground. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Station Houston on 2.
The Institute for Wine and Vine Research in Bordeaux is hosting a wine tasting like no other, and it's all thanks to the SpaceX Dragon cargo capsule. The spacecraft undocked from the International Space Station in January and headed back to Earth with some precious cargo. It was carrying 12 bottles of Bordeaux wine and 320 snippets of Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon grapevines. They had been sent into space a year earlier to determine how they would develop outside the Earth's atmosphere.
The main reason going to space was, in fact, to see how the aging process is working and how we can influence the aging process.
Now it's time to taste it. 12 lucky wine connoisseurs are blind tasting one of the space-traveled bottles, alongside a bottle from the same vintage that had stayed on Earth. The Celestial Vino goes for about $6,000 a bottle. But can the experts spot the difference between Earth wine and space wine? Jane Anson, wine expert and writer for The Decanter, says she can.
So both were absolutely gorgeous, but again, following the colour, the one that had remained on Earth for me was still a little bit more closed, a bit more tannic, a bit younger, and the one that had been up into space, the tannins had softened, the more floral aromatics came out.
Preliminary results from the tasting released on Wednesday showed differences in color, taste, and aroma between the space wine and the Earth wine. Understanding how gravity and oxygen affect the aging process could allow producers to age fine wines more quickly. The vine snippets not only all survived the journey, but also grew faster than vines on Earth, despite limited light and water. Understanding how plants develop outside of Earth's atmosphere could pave the way for vine growing and winemaking in space. But it also has the potential to improve agricultural practices on Earth. Scientists will be analyzing the wine and vines in more detail over the next few months. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Many of us have fond memories of creating our own worlds with Legos as children. In Vietnam, an enthusiast is embracing that nostalgia and building elaborate pieces inspired by his childhood.
Wang Zhang steps into his Lego project room, filled to the brim with drawers full of the ubiquitous tiny bricks. There, he starts to methodically construct a new project, a Vietnamese fishing boat. The industrial designer says he's loved Lego for as long as he can remember. But he only started to collect them seriously in the past decade, after a study abroad trip to Detroit. Wang says he's most inspired by scenes that bring him a sense of nostalgia. His childhood home, a temple in Hanoi's Old Quarter, or a 1990s Vietnamese living room during Lunar New Year.
I use Lego to build something that is very Hanoi because it is my hometown. I want to bring my perspective to friends all over the world because Vietnam's Lego building community is still not well known regionally and globally.
Wang says he hopes to eventually build 10 large-scale creations for an exhibition and is currently about halfway there. It takes about 5 months to finish a 5,000-piece facade, though he admits most of that time is spent sourcing the perfect brick. Despite his massive collection, Wang said he's always on the hunt for new pieces. That's how he made what he calls his Lego friends, like Hang Huynh from Ho Chi Minh City.
I get drawn to the everyday things around me that are very familiar. For example, a street corner that I pass every day going to work, or a train track crossroad, or a Honda motorcycle carrying bonsai trees that I saw. I build anything that I feel is beautiful and dear to me.
The pair met over a Facebook group for builders and collectors. They say they have a similar work process. First, they photograph what inspires them on the street, then recreate it from the brick up. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's all for now. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.